Okay, so I guess we should be ready to start now. So welcome everyone once again. We're super glad to have you here. As Sam said, you do have your Q&A section down there where you can leave your questions. Someone's saying that the chat is disabled, but you can use that Q&A question section, right?
Yeah, I did get the question that said the chat's disabled, so I'll look into that, but you can use the Q&A section for now and we'll
You
make
can
sure
use
to
that
work
one.
it.
Yeah, just
Yep.
let us know if it's not working, but it seems to be working. So feel free to leave your questions there while we're speaking. We'll make sure to check it constantly. So let's start then. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Oriana. I'm a growth marketing specialist. I'm part of the online marketing team here at Elevation. I've worked with a lot of nonprofits organizations. I've worked in B2B, B2C as well. I have 6 years of experience in the marketing field, but I'm also a business administrator. And that is why I always kind of tend to work with this 360-degree kind of approach, and always looking not only for marketing success, but organizational growth, kind of a more holistic approach. As for marketing, I'm a social media and email marketing specialist as well. And I'm here with my colleague Sam, so I let her introduce herself.
Hello. Do you want to go to my intro slide there, Orty?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No
Here we go.
worries, no worries. Okay, so yep, like Orty said, my name's Sam. I'm the head of online marketing at Elevation, which means that I oversee a lot of the day-to-day with our clients. Just so you know, if you're not familiar with Elevation, we'll tell you a little bit more about who we are shortly, but one thing that makes us special is that we specialize in nonprofits. So I hope most of you here are nonprofits. If not, it's okay. You can stick around. We'll be talking about marketing a little bit more generally, as well as the Google grant. But since we have this nonprofit specialization, I do like to kind of highlight that I do have some experience in the nonprofit world as well as in marketing. So I've been in your shoes in terms of having been on the nonprofit side and needing to understand what it's like to wear a million hats and all of those things that make nonprofits special. And in particular, like I said, my expertise really lies in understanding how nonprofits work, as well as I've worked with the Google grant for a long time. And one of my sort of favorite parts about marketing is analytics and measurement and data and seeing how our work makes an impact on your mission. So I'll be speaking a little bit to that later, but Orty, back to you.
Yeah. Okay, so to start with, we'd like to know a little bit about you. How much do you know about the Google Grant? Have you heard about it before? Have you worked with it? Are you already working with it? So I'm going to put a little poll here, which you can answer. Wait a minute.
I think I was able to launch it. You should have gotten a poll now, so you can start letting us know the answers to these two questions. Yep, I see some answers are coming in, so I think it's working.
Yeah, great. So we'll give a couple of seconds for you to answer. Okay, so it looks like a lot of you have heard of it, but don't really know much about it, or you haven't done the application. Or the application is like one of your biggest questions that you left there on the form. Okay.
Awesome.
Now we have another question about your digital marketing efforts, like in general. So it looks like a lot of you are using social media and email marketing. That's great. We'll talk a little bit about how we can also use all the keyword research work that you'll do in order to create your Google Ad Grant campaigns for these other strategies as well. The Google Ad Grant is one of multiple tools that we have when it comes to creating a whole digital marketing strategy. So it's great to know that you're using the other channels as well. Okay. Let me
I also
close it.
I see in the
Someone's raising
chat.
their hands.
I think that might be the same person as before.
Yeah.
But I did see in the chat that somebody said that in terms of other, they said that they had done a little bit of digital ad buy. So that sounds like maybe some ads outside of the Google grant in Google. So that's exciting too. And also just to make sure we answer the other question that came in, Carly, we are recording this session. And we'll send it to you in an email afterwards. You'll also be able to find it. We'll share it around. So on our YouTube channel, but we'll make sure you get it via email. So don't worry.
Hey, great. So today we're here to talk about the Google Ad Grant. But anyway, if you do have some questions regarding whatever online marketing related in the nonprofits field, feel free to share them here in the Q&A section. We work with all the channels that exist on digital marketing here at Elevation. So we're super glad to answer your questions as well. We'll talk about that once we finish with the whole presentation. So, okay, let's start by introducing Elevation for the ones that don't know us. We are a digital marketing, web design, branding specialized company, specialized in nonprofits. Elevation was founded in 2007, which means we've been around for 15 years now. So we have a huge experience working in all these fields that I've mentioned and in the Google Grant as well. Of course, we have international presence. We have headquarters in DC, offices in Florida, in California, and in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Both of us are in Buenos Aires right now. We're a mission-driven team. As Sam said, we are 45 members, and we all have direct nonprofit experience. So we do understand your missions. We have this close to our hearts as well. And yeah, we work with more than 600 nonprofits across all industry areas. So we have a super broad experience in all these fields. Okay, so we're going to talk about a little bit to start with. We're going to talk a bit about what Google Ads are and what the Google Ad Grant is specifically, how it can help you with brand awareness, which means getting the word out about what you do, about your missions, how you can promote your programs, your services, but mostly how you can reach the audiences when they are actually looking for you or looking for the kind of things that you do. We're going to review what a Google Grant strategy structure kind of looks like, how Google Ads is structured, the whole campaign, ad groups, and ads structure, and how it can look like for you. We're going to give some examples there. Then we will have a great surprise that could be super useful for you, but you have to wait a little bit for that. And then we will leave you some additional resources, some videos, some extra information that you'll be able to check. We'll be sending everything via email then, so just feel free to relax and listen. You don't have to be taking notes. You will have the recording, you will have the slides. So just focus on maybe asking whatever questions that come up to your mind. So at the end of the session, we will have in the Q&A. We have already brought some of the questions that you left when you signed, when you register for this webinar. So we will have that covered, but feel free to ask whatever you want. Sam, do we have any questions up to now there on the
we do have a couple questions that I think we're gonna cover during the call. So for those of you that are asking, hang tight. We're gonna get to a lot of them, and then the few that aren't, that are maybe more specific, I'm answering in the chat as we go. So don't worry, you can continue on.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we'll start with talking a little bit about what Google Ads are. So this is kind of the structure of what appears when you do whatever search on Google. So when you search whatever keyword, let's say, I don't know, animals, refugee in California, I don't know, animal shelter in California, you will get a list of results. And those first results, you will see that actually say sponsored. And that means that those results, those maybe 2 or 3 results are actually ads. So people are actually paying or not paying and using their grants if they are nonprofits and they are using this program in order to appear there. The rest of the results will be what we call organic or SEO. You may have heard about that. But those results are not ads, are not being paid. But anyway, it's not like you have let's say someone looks for animal shelters in California, as I said, and you do have an animal shelter in California. It's not like your website is going to appear there by magic. Imagine there are a lot of websites that would want to appear there when someone does that exact same search. So there's a lot that you need to work on in order for your website to appear there, both on the ads side, but also on the organic, and most of all on the organic side. So as for that organic part, the SEO is what we need to work on, and that has like different parts of it. They have the more technical side that has to do with how your website is created, how you're using the structure of the H1, H2 paragraphs. You may have heard about that. You also need to have a content that is actually relevant for that queries you are trying to appear for. And there's a lot that you need to work on in terms of SEO, but today we're going to talk about those first results that are actually ads, and this is what the Google Grant is going to help you with. So what actually is the Google Ad Grant? It is a monthly $10,000, which is a lot, in-kind donation from Google to advertise on their search network. It's good to know that this is only for search ads, because Google does have other types of ads. You may have heard about, for example, display ads, that are those kind of little flyers that appear when you are on other websites. Maybe you're reading the news and you see like a small advertising there. Those are other type of Google Ads. This is only for the search network. That is what I mentioned before, when someone does whatever search on Google and their website appears. So it's $10,000 a month. That is a lot. You will see that there are a lot of nonprofits that maybe are not so big, and they will even be able to reach the whole audience they want to reach by using maybe $5,000 a month. So really, this is a lot of money. It's good to know that it's $10,000 a month, and it's not like if you don't use all of it, you will be able to pass it over for the next month. If you used $8,000, you won't be able to use those other 2,000 for the following month. They will just renew by month. And this money can only be used for the ads. It's like a credit on your Google Ads account. It's not like it will be transferred to your bank account, for example. No. So here are some things we have to take into account when it comes to trying to apply for the Google Grant. And first of all, and this is one of the questions that you've already done, you apply only once. It's not like you need to reapply each month for the grant to be kind of re-given to you. The application is done only once, but you do need to remain compliant with some requirements that we'll talk about in a little bit, in order for it to keep on being on, but you don't need to reapply. The application process is done only once. So in order to be eligible for this grant, first of all, and the most important thing, your organization must be a 501c3. This works for the USA, but the equivalent, if you are in another country, you will be able to check this in Google's website. But this is super important. This is like the #1 rule in order to be eligible. Then you also need to have a secure website. You know, on the first part of the link of your website, it needs to be HTTPS. That means that your website is secure. That is super important as well. You need to have a nice website. Because as I said, it's not like, even if you are paying for it or not paying for it in this case, it's not like you're always going to appear there first. Your ad needs to be relevant. Your website needs to have relevant content. It needs to be well done. So there's a lot that you have to work on in order to actually appear there when someone is looking for you. Here are some bad news. It doesn't work for schools, healthcare institutions, or government entities, but there are some exceptions. So our recommendation is try to apply and then let Google decide. If you're not able to do it, then there's always a lot of other marketing strategies that you can work on. And of course, you can still do Google Ads. The thing is, you won't be eligible for the grant. You will have to pay for it. But as I said, there are a lot of exceptions. And if you are a 501c3, you still have some chances. So our recommendation is always try to apply and see how it goes. We have an eligibility quiz here at Elevation that we created, which you can take. I think Sam is going to give you a link through the chat right now, which you can take in order to kind of have a first approach and see what chances do you have of actually getting through the application process. So that can give you a quick first view. Mostly for these kind of difficult cases, like the ones I mentioned about school or healthcare institutes, government entities, and so on. So, as for the maintenance requirements, as I said, you need to remain compliant with these requirements each month in order for the grant to be renewed. As long as everything is okay with this, you will get those $10,000 kind of forever, or at least that's how it's been working up to now. So first thing has to do with the account organization. Your account on Google Ads. Sam is going to show you a little bit on how that kind of looks in a few minutes and how you can structure that. But you will have to have at least 2 ad groups per campaign with at least 2 ads each. The general structure, as I said, Sam is going to deep dive in this in a few moments, but you'll have campaigns, then you have ad groups inside those campaigns, and then you have the actual ads on each ad group. So in order to remain compliant with the grant, you will have to have 2 ad groups per campaign with at least 2 ads each. You will have to have negative keywords. What does this mean? When you create search ads, what you are kind of bidding for, we were going to talk about that later on as well, but are actually keywords. You want to appear, you want your website and your ad to appear when someone is searching for the keywords that are related to your organization or to what you do. So you will have a list of keywords that you actually want your website to appear for, but Google is going to ask you for the negative keywords as well. That may be keywords that maybe, like on the first place, are kind of related to what you do, but actually don't really have to do with what you do. So in that case, what we are using those negative keywords for is in order to prevent some our website to appear on some search that don't really have to do with what we do. So you will have to work on those negative keywords as well. Then you will have to use geo-targeting. You will have to have site link, callout, and structure snippet extensions. These are just some technical things about the structure of the ads themselves. But when you see an ad on Google, you will see that it has like different parts of it. It has like a title, like a little bit of information, and then you have like small links. You have like the general link. For example, it could be an ad that is leading to your homepage on your website, but then you can add some small tiny links with some other parts of your website. Let's say, for example, the contact us landing page. So these are just small add-ons to the structure of your ad that you will need to work on. Google will want your ad to be like as good as it can be in order for it to actually be shown. This works for the whole Google Ads thing. It's not just a Google grant, a grant requirement. Google always wants ads to be done like as good as we can in order for them to actually perform well. Are we okay up to now? Do we have any question that we
Just
I should
one
address?
note, I just sent a link to a video on our YouTube channel where we talk a lot more about extensions. So if that was a little bit kind of like, whoa, a lot of Google technical terms, it's okay. There is a video for that. So if you want to learn more about that, I just popped the link in the chat. But otherwise, I think we got all the questions covered. So I think you're good to continue.
No worries, like they kind of have difficult names, but they're just like tiny links and maybe like your phone number or just small things that add up to your ads. Then you will have to set up conversion goals. A conversion is whatever desired action that you want the user to do on your website. It could be, I don't know, checking on a whole landing page, kind of going through it, reading it. It could be filling in a form. It could be signing up for an event. Whatever action that you want the user to do on your website. Let's say, for example, click on a button. You will have to set those conversion goals in order to have like a better tracking of how your ads are working. Here we have like one of the toughest rules, that is you will need to have to maintain a 5% click-through rate. What is the click-through rate? It's the amount of clicks that you have. It's a rate that comes from the amount of clicks that you have out of the people that actually saw the ad. So it kind of shows you how relevant the ad actually is for people who are searching for those terms. 5% is a high rate. In like the general performance of the Google search ads going between 2 and 3%. So Google is asking for a high click-through rate here. I'm not going to lie. You need to work on this. You need to keep an eye on this, and you really need to kind of be constantly working towards improving the content of your ads and trying to make it as relevant for the user as you can. You need to work on this, but it's not impossible. To be honest, here at Elevation, we have never had a client that whose click-through rate was below 5%. So you need to work on it, but it's not at all impossible. And then Google asks you for regular account optimization. So you need to log in, you need to make changes to your strategies, to your campaigns, maybe add new ad groups. Anyway, you will have to do this if you want to, as I said, have relevant ads, have a nice performance and and have that 5% CTR. So that's something you will be doing anyway. So I kind of already mentioned this at the beginning, but what is the Google Ad Brand good at? First of all, brand awareness, getting the word out about what you do, reaching new audiences. When we talk about 360 degrees marketing strategies, we use like a visual representation that is called the marketing funnel, which kind of talks about the whole way that a user goes from the very first moment when they get to know about you to the last moment when they take whatever of those conversions that we mentioned, those desired actions. That could be, for example, maybe donating to your cause. So on the very first part, when we work on brand awareness, that has to do with getting the word out and getting people to know about what we do. But maybe on the middle part of the funnel is where Google will be able to help us a lot, because maybe there's someone that may have heard of you on social media or by word of mouth, for example. And when they go to Google and actually search maybe the name of your organization, or they search something about your cause, they kind of already have that intent, and they are kind of already in the middle of the funnel or in the middle of that path going towards taking whatever action related to your organization. So this is going to actually help you reach the audiences when they are actually looking for you. Promoting your programs and services, of course, and everything you do, you will be able to create different ad groups that lead to different parts of your website, your programs, your mission, your contact us landing page. We are going to review that when we talk about the whole Google Ads structure. But for example, if you do have events, you will be able to promote those as well. If you have, if you create content and you have a blog, for example, you will be able to promote those blogs as well. So there's a lot that can be done, and there are billions and billions of searches each day. So Google is an amazingly powerful tool. So I would encourage you to definitely use this Google grant, because it's amazing. And as I said, it's a lot of money. So if you really work on it, you will get amazing results, and it will give you a huge boost to your marketing efforts. Okay, so I leave some from now on. I'll make sure
do you want to stop sharing and I can start sharing, so that way you can keep an eye on the chat, because I see there's quite a few questions coming in, so it might be a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Okay. So I do want to just take a second before I go back to the presentation to answer a few questions that came in that I think are a little bit relevant here. So the first one is just about a question about that 5% CTR maintenance, about if there's a ramp up time, or do I need to have that from the first day? It's a really good question. So usually what we say is that if you're making good quality ads in the beginning, it's not necessarily that in the very beginning, your CTR isn't necessarily going to be too much lower. But with that said, if you drop below 5% for a day or two or something like that, that doesn't mean that you're automatically going to lose the grant or something like that. There is a grace period. It's usually, I think it's 60 days. I might have to check on that, but I'm pretty sure in the beginning you have a 60-day grace period in order for it to get started. And then in general, if you fall below for a couple of days and then you get it back up, it's okay. You're not going to lose the grant immediately. It's over the course of like a longer period of time that it needs to be below that if you were to be able to lose it. So don't worry about that. And then the other one that I saw that I wanted to make sure that we answered was just, do you have to run ads every month to be eligible? You don't. You do need to continue to log into the account. You do need to make changes. But if you don't need to run ads because there's not something that you want to promote, you don't have to. With that said, I would really strongly encourage you to have some kind of brand awareness campaign running all of the time. Since you've got the money, you might as well use it. So that's a really good transition into what I'm going to talk a little bit more about, which is now that you know what the grant is, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what's a good strategy and how can we use it. So with that said, I'll go ahead and go back to sharing the screen so you can see the presentation. Can you see it okay? Okay, great. So now you've got the grant, you've gotten through the application process. We're going to talk a little bit more about those questions in a little bit, but let's say that you've been approved, your website's eligible, you've signed up, you're going into the account, and it's like, what do I do next? A lot of people kind of get really excited about the application process. And as far as the application processes goes, it's not too terrible. So I really want to make sure that we spend a little bit of time talking about, okay, what do we do with the grant once we have it? Because I think a lot of people get stuck here. A lot of people have problems spending. Maybe they're not showing the ads as much, or they don't even know what to use it on because maybe you're a nonprofit and you're not really thinking about marketing that much because you've just maybe never had the funds to do it, or you're new, or whatever that might be. It's really good to know some basic things about how Google Ads works in order to be able to use the grant. So the very first thing that I want to make sure we have clear here are some technical terms that Google Ads uses. If you've used other advertising services, if you've used Meta, so that would be like Facebook or Instagram, or if you've used Google Ads outside of the Google grant, and the Microsoft ad grant, the structure is going to mirror pretty similarly. A lot of the different advertising platforms use a similar structure, but in terms of the Google Ads accounts, and specifically the Google Grant accounts, this is how things are set up. So the first kind of high level thing that we want to talk about are campaigns. Campaigns, I'm going to give you a little bit more of a visual in a second, so bear with me here, but what do you need to know about them? Campaigns are the way that we organize your account. They're high level topics. They're what you name a campaign and how you set up a campaign. The user of Google will never see. It's only for you inside of the account, but it's a way that we keep things straight. It's also where we set our budgets and where our geographic targeting happens. So budgets and geographic targeting are really important because we're working with this grant. One of the requirements of the grant is that you do set up geographic targeting. So it is important to have really clear what you want to do with your campaigns, how you want to spend the money. You also set things like your bidding strategy there. So are you trying to maximize the amount of people that visit your website? Or are you trying to maximize the number of conversions that you get? That's also set up on the campaign level. So the campaigns are at the very top, and they are the way that we organize things. Within campaigns, there are also things called ad groups. Ad groups are also helping us organize the account, but ad groups exist within campaigns. So our top levels campaigns, then within campaigns, we have ad groups. Ad groups should correspond with the landing page on your website. This is really, really important because this is why you need a website. Your ads need to bring people to a specific page of your website. It has to be your website. It can't be like a Facebook page or social media. It needs to be on your website because when you complete the Google Grant application, you're applying to advertise for a specific website. So the website pages that you use for the grant, they need to be on the website that you applied the grant with. If you ever change your website, you can get that changed in Google Ads, but in general, you want to make sure that you're applying with the website that you're going to be using to advertise. And so when we start to select the pages on our website that we want to use, we need to group them into ad groups. The way that I like to think about this is they're kind of like the topics that my ads are going to be talking about. Why that's important is that our keywords are also grouped within our ad groups. Now, if this is getting confusing, just bear with me here because like I said, I'm going to give you a visual, but this is so you have a little bit of an idea of what the different areas are. So before I get into keywords, I do want to talk about ads, because this is something that I find that my clients get a little bit confused about sometimes. So maybe it's a little bit confusing for you too. But ads are actually what people are seeing in Google. So up until this point, it's been all about organization, and ads are the things that people are actually seeing. When we write ads, we write usually 15 headlines and 4 descriptions. And that might sound a little crazy, because when you search for things, you're not seeing 15 headlines and 4 descriptions. You're seeing just a little piece of that. And this is because Google uses its Google Magic or AI or whatever you want to call it behind the scenes in order to select which of these things that things are going to perform best with your audience. So Google works the best when we give it a lot of options to work with, and then it can select between them in order to show what seems like it's going to work best. So that's why here, the big tip that I have is write varied copy, give it a lot of options, because that's where you're going to be most successful. Then within the next piece is keywords. So keywords are words that essentially trigger your ads. Like Oriana was saying before, when you type something into Google, then Google's, with all the auctions and all the things that are happening behind the scenes, it's trying to match it up with these keywords. So the keywords are how you tell Google what you want to be shown for in the search. There are quite a few rules around keywords that she mentioned before as well. One that I do want to make sure you keep in mind is that keywords, although they kind of sound like they maybe should be one word, they actually have to be more than one word. And that's a requirement of the grant, is that your keywords, unless it's your organization name, must be at least 2 words. So if that was all confusing, it's okay, because I'm going to get you to the part where I think it will help you get it straight in your head. So this is the structure that I was talking about before. We have our campaigns above everything, and this is where those things, like I said, geographic targeting, budgeting happens. Then we have our ad groups, which are kind of our main topics. And within those ad groups, we have keywords and specific ads. So we're going to walk you through a little bit of how the setup of this would work with an actual example of a client that we work with at Elevation. So you kind of can see what is the thought process of how we put this together. But before I get into that, just want to pause. Is there any questions that need to be answered out loud, or there's a lot of info there?
We have a couple here. Someone's asking, can you use Performance Max for Google AdWords? Performance Max is another type of campaign that Google Ads has, like the display ones that I mentioned, and the answer is no. You can only use the grant for search type campaigns. And then we have some people asking, like, what if we have 2 websites? Are subdomains included in the website we select in our application? Sam, do you want to deep dive a bit there?
Yes, I can. So once you have the Google grant, there's 2 things I want to talk about here. First is if you have another domain that's associated with your website. So let's say your nonprofit for some reason has 2 websites, or you've got a microsite for an event or whatever that might be. There is an application that comes after the main Google grant application that's called an additional domain application. And so you can apply to add an additional domain to your Google Ads account. You just need to have the Google Ads account that's associated with the grants, customer ID, and then one of the email addresses that you use to access it, and then the additional domain that you want to add. So yes, you can absolutely do that. Another thing that's very common is wanting to advertise and bring people directly to a donation page, but that your donation page might not be hosted within your organization's website. So for example, maybe you have Classy that you use for your donations, and you use a Classy hosted page. In those cases, there are some donation platforms that Google already recognizes, and so you don't need to go through this additional process to use them. Sometimes they're not already recognized, and then you would also need to add it as an additional domain. But what I would suggest there is, if you've got that donation page, just to try to put it into your account and see if the ad's approved. If the ad's disapproved, at that point, then you should fill out that form or contact Google support, and they'll be able to help you fill out the right information for that. But you absolutely can use more than one website if it's relevant to your nonprofit's mission. Any other ones to answer?
No, that's it for now. Wait, we have a new one. It says, why does an ad have to target your website landing page? Can't it target another web page within your site that is relevant on the topic? Yes, or you can target all of the landing pages on your website. It doesn't have to be like the home page or anything. You can play around with your whole website.
Yeah, I
That's
think
why you
that's
have different campaigns and different ad groups and different ads. So you can select what landing page on your website you want the ad to lead to.
yeah, I think that might just be some confusion with us using marketing. We always call things landing pages, but yes, there are pages on your website. So it could be a program page or a home page or a donation page. It's any of them are eligible.
That's it for now. You can go on.
All right. So, like I said, I want to talk to you a little bit about an example because I think it's easier to kind of put this into practice when you can imagine it in a real sense. So, this client that we've worked with at Elevation, they're called Emmaus. We actually built their website for them too, which we were really excited to do. And we're really proud of the website. And then we use that website in order to apply to the Google Ad Grant. And so with them, once we got started, we were really able to have really amazing results, which we're super proud of. But what I really want to get into is one that a lot of people ask me about all the time. And that was, is it possible to get donations from the Google Grant? And the answer is yes. And this is something, like I said, I'm very, very proud of. With Emmaus, we were able to, at the end of last year, get over $2,000 in donations from users that we know found the website via Google Ads and the Google Grant specifically. So it's possible, but I just want to share this because a lot of people ask us this, and we have some tips about how to do this. With that said, you might be like, okay, 2,000, I was hoping for $1 million. We all wish we could help you get $1 million in donations. That's usually not possible. And getting to this point of having $2,000 in donations, the culmination of years of work and a beautiful website and really collaborating, but it's possible. And with that said, it's also really useful in order to get other types of conversions, like Oriana mentioned before. Event signups, that's also something we worked on with this client, as well as just getting the word out there about your nonprofit. So it's really important to sit down and make sure that your goals kind of align with what's possible and what the grant's good at, but also know that you can set high goals and that the grant can be a really helpful part of a fundraising strategy too. So with that said, how do we do that? How do we get there? What should we do to get started? The first thing that I wanted to share with you was a little bit of a taste of what their campaign planning looked like. This is a much more kind of cut down version, but to give you an idea of the types of ads that people had contact with that did eventually convert into donors, and that also converted into signing up for some of their events, that also became volunteers, that learned about the organization, that has a very local focus, that even though they lived in the area, had never heard about it. So there's a lot that this can do, and I just want to give you a little bit of a taste. So with this particular nonprofit, we sat down and they told us that two things that were really important to them was getting the word out there about their nonprofit and also encouraging people in their community to get involved, particularly young people. This nonprofit had a lot of support from the older community in their local community, but a lot of young people had never heard of the work that they did, and they had some events that were really interesting for young people. So these were two things that were really important to them. And so we sat down with them, we looked at their website. We, of course, knew their website pretty well since we designed it. We kind of picked out some pages that we thought were really strong. And this is where my first tip comes in. You want to make sure that the pages that you use for the Google Grant for promoting with the ads are really strong, but also that they tell users about what your organization does and the impact that you're having very quickly. Because one of the things that's very difficult about the Google Grant is that you're trying to reach new audiences. And typically it takes time for people to get to the point where they're going to make a contribution, or even that they're going to come back and want to learn more. And so it's very important to get the information very quickly to these people who are just learning about you for the very first time. So any pages that you're using with the Google Grant, you should really make sure that the messaging is clear. Some people even choose to create pages specifically for their ads. So they don't use the web pages that already exist, but they create pages that are special for ads in order to make sure that they accomplish this. So that's one of the tips that I have. Another thing that you should make sure that you do is that the keywords that you're using in your search term or in your ads also appear in the landing pages that you're using. So for example, these three keywords here, Emmaus Inc., Emmaus Shelter, and Homeless Shelter in Massachusetts, were three keywords that we used to bring people to their About Us page. So before we published the ads, we needed to make sure that these three keywords appeared in the actual ads, so the text that we were telling Google that we wanted it to use, as well as the website page that we brought people to. That's going to make sure that your ads have a high quality score, which is one of the requirements of the grant, And also, when your ads have a high quality, your keywords, sorry, have a high quality score and your ads match up well with your keywords, then they're more likely to show. And so doing this is very important. My next tip about the structure is about this idea of using stories of your impact. So again, remember what I said, how when people use search in order to get to your website, they're hearing about you for the very first time. So they don't know about what you do and all of the amazing things that I'm sure you're all doing. So these kinds of impact stories are really, really, really helpful in order to inform people quickly about what you do and why it's important. And I think this is one of the things that are most underutilized for the grant, or that it doesn't occur to people to use. These are also nice because sometimes they have more broad keywords. And one of the ways that a lot of people that are starting to use the grant for the first time, one of the things that they run into in terms of challenges is that their ads aren't getting shown as much as they would want to, or they're not using very much of the grant. And when that happens, we want to make sure that we try to go broader with our keywords, but keep it relevant to our work. And so doing things like impact stories where you can get a little bit deeper into the storytelling is a good way to do that. Okay. I think I'm going to continue because I don't want to run out of time. I can talk forever about this. Are there any questions though, before I kind of get into the nitty gritty of how it's set up?
No, we had a question that said, do you have to spend the $10,000? The answer is no, you don't need to spend the whole budget. And as I said, maybe you have a small organization and your audience is not so big, so you won't have to spend the $10,000 in order to reach them. And then we have a super specific question that says, our organization is a nonprofit addiction and mental health treatment center. So we have to set up our Legit Script certification. But in the meantime, can we set up donation campaigns without needing Legit Script?
That is an amazing question. And that is actually something that we've been through a couple times with nonprofits that we work with, because there's a lot of mental health nonprofits out there that just so if you don't know or you're not in this space, Google Ads is very, very limited about being able to speak up using ads to talk about addiction. There's been some like controversies in the past and everything. So you have to get verified. You have to go through this process that they're mentioning in order to be able to do that. But yes, you can still use the grant. We actually work with an organization right now that's going through that process, but that is still using the grant. They specifically receive car donations. And so what they're doing is they're just advocating kind of more broadly about how they work with mental health and that they receive these donations. So you can absolutely do it in the meantime. With that said, it can be very difficult and you have to kind of play around with the keywords. It's a lot of trial and error, but it's possible.
And someone is asking, does this apply to gender-based violence as well?
So the specific rule that I'm mentioning there is specifically about like the word addiction and addiction services. That's like the keyword that's very, not just keyword, but the word that's very difficult. I would say when in other ones, it's also a little bit more of a trial and error with sensitive topics. But in that case, I don't think that you're going to have that exact problem about needing to get verified with the JIT script, because that's a separate thing.
Okay, that's it for now.
All right, cool. So next I wanted to show you a little bit what Google Ads looks like. One word of warning here is that the interface of Google Ads changes pretty often. So even when I logged in this morning, it looked a little bit different from this. But generally the structure is going to look something like this. And so don't get lost if it seems like, whoa, it's more white than it was here or whatever. It will look something like this. So when you first log into Google Ads, usually you're going to have on this left side kind of a bar where you can see your different campaigns once you have them set up. If you want to set up a new campaign, you can click on it here. I'm not going to go through a whole kind of like tour of Google Ads because like I said, it changes so often. It's really something that you should just kind of play around with and see if you have the grant. One thing to know is that your grant account should not be billed. You should never put credit card information into this account. If you walk away from this webinar knowing anything, it's that you should not put credit card information into a Google Ads account for the Google grant. You're actually going to create your Google grant account via Google for Nonprofits. So it's never going to ask you for payment information. And if you put payment information into the account, that's wrong. And you should get in contact with somebody from Google support to fix that, because it should not be like that. So what I'm trying to say here is that it's okay to play around in a Google Grant account once you verified that you're not being billed. You can verify that you're not being billed by going to the billing section of the settings of Google Ads. And there's this big thing that says like, this account is not billed. So once you know that that's the case, it's okay to play around in Google Ads. You're gonna get ads disapproved sometime. That's the reality. You should try to do your best to be as faithful to the Google Ad Grant requirements that we've talked about as possible. But we also know that, everybody has to learn somehow, so it's okay. So with that said, to give you a little bit of a taste before you get into it, this is what it looks like. And so what I was saying here is that you've got this top level of campaigns. So the very first thing that you're going to create is a campaign. This is another example from that same organization, Emmaus, about what their particular campaigns look like. So you can see these are very high level topics. Then once you go from the campaigns here, the next section is your ad groups. So within your campaigns, you can have many different ad groups. For the grant, you need to have at least 2. So it's very important. Every campaign needs 2 ad groups minimum. You can have as many as you want. I think there's like 1,000 something limit maybe, but I would imagine you're probably not going to have that many. So it's okay. And like I said, those things kind of need to fit into the higher level bucket. So for example, your brand awareness should probably talk about a little bit more about who you are and what you do. Whereas things like volunteering should talk about volunteering, events should talk about events, so on and so forth. So like I said, just to recap, campaigns are high level topics and buckets, and then within them are your ad groups. Then when you go to create an actual ad, this is what it looks like. This is what I was saying, where you can type in your headlines and it tells you a little bit about your keywords that you're trying to use. And then you can see examples of how they might get combined. So this is what it looks like when you go to set it up. You can also see that we have the picture here, and these 2 links down here are some of the examples of what we're trying to add to the account here. These are the extensions that I sent the video about before. This is what it looks like a little bit more and some of the ways that you might try to set it up. And then I want to close up by kind of coming back to this idea of how can we make this successful, and how do we get to the point where people really convert and really connect, and Google Grant works for me. And what I want you to kind of walk away with is that Google Grant should be part of a wider strategy. And this is an example of how we did that with this client and how I would really encourage you to think about it for you. So in this particular case, the example that I'm showing here was that we wanted to create a journey for getting a younger volunteer to get involved with the organization. So the way that we kind of sat down and thought about this was we came up with this idea of what would an example of this potential person be? What could she be doing in order to find out about this? And what might be the very first step in her process? And so a lot of people Google things when they decide that they want to start looking for something. So we're imagining that she's Googling something about volunteer opportunities in her area. She's also maybe a cyclist, and maybe she's searching about cycling because one of the events that this nonprofit does was related to cycling. So we sat down, we tried to think about, okay, what are some of the ways that somebody like this could be Googling to learn more, and what would we want to show her? And so that's the very first step. Then we kind of kept going through the different steps. But what I want you to focus on here is that this is the first contact that somebody has. Then over time, they need to have continued contact with you. So she might not sign up to volunteer the very first time she hears about your organization. But what you can try to get her to do is to continue to engage. So being very clear about who you are and what you do, like I said, is very, very important. The next thing that's very important is figure out how you can stay in contact with this person. So in this case, we decided that we wanted to try to get her to leave her email. So we could do some email marketing. We could send her our newsletters. For me, I get a lot of newsletters from nonprofits because, well, I work in this industry and I sign up for a lot of newsletters. But when somebody has a good newsletter, you're like, wow, I really want to get involved. So this is really, really important. And this is one of the best ways that nonprofits can continue to engage people, especially because email marketing is quite cheap. It's free, basically, if you just have an account to send an email from. And this is a good way to continue to get people involved. And this is how we were successful in this particular case, was capturing people's emails, coming up with a sequence to send them over time. And then eventually they did convert in volunteers and donors and things like that. So here's an example of how it can work. And what I want you to walk away with here is just know that Google Grant, while it can do a lot, it can't always stand on its own, and you should be trying to combine it with other strategies as well, whether that's social media or email marketing. This is how we can make it really powerful. So with all of that said, I think we get to the surprise. I know there's a lot of questions because I can kind of still see them coming in about eligibility and how do we get started and what's the first step. And I know a lot of you maybe don't have the grant yet, you've just heard of it. So we have good news for you. We're going to help you do the application if you've not already done it, or if you've like lost access and you don't know what to do. We're having this offer where if you came to the webinar today, we want to thank you for coming. We're going to still answer questions after this. So if you have them, don't leave. If you sent them along before, don't leave. But we just wanted to make sure that you know before we get all the questions about eligibility that we will help you. So after the webinar, you're going to get an email from us with the recording, the presentation, so you can have all of the information. And if you respond to that email letting us know that you want to take advantage of this offer, then we'll help you do the grant application so you can see if you'll be eligible. It's free of charge. You're not committing to anything. So it's just something that we know that there's a lot of confusion out there. We want to try to help you guys out. So like I said, look for an email after this. It will probably go out tomorrow morning because it's a little bit late here. And you can respond to that and let us know that you'd like to take advantage of it. And if you do, then we'll assign an account strategist from our team to get in contact, and they'll help you go through the process. Please do be patient if you do reach out because there's quite a few of you here. So we want to make sure that we have enough time to give everybody to do that. But like I said, you'll get the email with instructions afterward. So I have some questions, but I want to pause because otherwise I'll just keep talking infinitely. Are there any new ones in the chat that we should address related to this or what I just talked about before we get into the other ones?
Yes, and also someone raised their hand. Could you please write your question on the Q&A section so we can answer it there? So one of the questions is, are there issues around ads that are related to political issues? We are an elections nonprofit.
Yes, that is also a very good question. That's something we work with several news nonprofits at Elevation, and that's something that a lot of them also run into because, like you said, it's the election year. And so, yes, there are some limitations around that. The good news is that it's not fully limited. It does kind of vary state by state what's allowed, and you do need to be verified. That is something that you go through in the Google Ads process, is that it verifies your organization's identity, and that does help. And then it's just kind of being careful about wording and how you're presenting information. So you can talk about elections a little bit, but it is one of those things similar to addiction where you need to be very careful. You need to understand that there are going to be quite a few ads that are disapproved. And oftentimes you need to be more general, speaking about the issues and having landing pages. So I wouldn't count on this as one of your primary strategies for marketing, but you might try it anyway to see how it could fit in more of a limited way.
Okay, so then we have, where do you go on site to set up ads? What do you click? Just to be extra clear here, once you've done the application and you have access to the grant, this is all done on the Google Ads platform, that is ads.google.com. This is not done on your own website, so it's done on Google's website. Do we have to worry about campaigns competing against each other if I use the same keyword in two different ad groups? That's a nice one.
That's a very good question. I'll go back to the graphics so you can look at it while we're talking about it. Good question. Do not use the same keywords in multiple campaigns. If you do use them, you should have different targeting. So say you want to have two ads and one's targeted to New York and one's targeted to California and they're not competing against each other. That's fine. It's kind of a gray area where I don't think it's strictly prohibited by the grant, although I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it's not. But it's not a good practice. And so I would try not to do that unless you're very explicitly differentiating them for some very specific reason, like geographic targeting.
Yeah, so the next one says, so if we have been set up as a nonprofit with the free Google for Nonprofits, do we also need to apply separately for the Google Ads?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good question too. So that is kind of related to how the application works. That's something that we would help you with. So if you're at that point, we can help you with that. But basically, when you log into Google for Nonprofits, you're going to get in the Google for Nonprofits platform, there's an area that says Google Ad Grants. There is an application. It's pretty short. The approval time's much quicker than the Google for Nonprofits application, but it is a second step. Okay. Before you
Um,
add any
yeah.
more from the chat, I want to make sure, because we don't have a ton of time left, that we hit on one question that we got in the sign up for the webinar, was if there were any additional resources that we could share. You will have the slide in the email that we follow up with, so you can come to this slide to find them. But like I said, we do have a YouTube channel. There is a training from Google that's actually about the Google grant. It's a little bit out of date though, but it's still helpful. Elevation also has a AI copy generator to help you with writing your ads, so you can check that out. And like I said, the eligibility quiz. So you can come back here for that. We did have some other questions that were left, but Ordi, are there any that are like very urgent or good that you want to hit on in the Q&A before I just speak quickly about these four?
There are a lot of new ones coming in,
Okay.
but yeah, I would say just go on with the ones that we had previously, and then we can chat the chat.
Okay. We can stick around for a few minutes afterwards, so continue put them in the chat. We'll do our best to answer what we can. We'll stay around for a couple more minutes if you want to hear them out. If you do need to leave, thank you for coming. We really, really appreciate it. You can look for a follow-up email, and we'll do our best to answer everything that we can, okay? All right. So as far as the questions that we got, I want to make sure we touch on the ones because we really appreciate when you leave the questions beforehand. Of course, please ask everything that you have here, but this allows us to make sure that we have the answers that you need as well. So if you come to another webinar from Elevation, we hope you do. It's really helpful when you leave them ahead of time if you know the questions. If you don't, of course, we're happy to receive them in live too. But so these are the questions that we received before. A lot of people had questions about what happens if we're like part of a coalition of 501c3s, or where we want to work with somebody else, or any of these, like many variations of this. The short answer that I can give you is that if there's any time there's a 501c3 registered with the IRS, that's one Google Grant account. So if you're working kind of under the umbrella of a coalition or something like that, then unfortunately you're probably not going to be able to use it because there's probably only one Google grant for like a lot of organizations. Now we can evaluate it if you're not sure, kind of that doesn't answer your question. We can evaluate it with you on a case-by-case basis, but typically that's usually not possible. The next one that we had was about increasing reach and keyword research. I hope that we answered a little bit about this before, but I do just want to give a couple tips here that one thing to know about Google Grant is that the Google Grant auction happens after the regular Google Ads auction. If you don't know what that means, it's okay. It just means that when we try to buy things, that happens after the people that are paying with real money in Google Ads. So it can be hard. But what we suggest is just try to get more specific with those keywords, try to find the content that works. If you're getting people via organic search, you might try that as well to branch off of it in terms of your paid search, and also use keyword research tools, but also your gut. So do that thinking exercise of what might somebody be putting into Google. And the good news is that with the Google Grant, you can test things out. And if it doesn't work, you just pause it and you try a new one. So keep at it, keep trying, try to broaden out what you're talking about, but make sure it's still relevant to your organization. The next one, and I'm just going to kind of clip through these, so interrupt me if there's anything like relevant to that. But the next one that I want to talk about is conversions and donations and donate pages. I would really like to do a full webinar about this one day where we just go really in depth with this. So stay tuned. That's kind of a goal. But just to know kind of on like a high level, the one like big tip that I have related to conversions and donations and everything is that in order for us to be able to know if it's working, you need to be tracking this. And so those numbers that I showed you about Emmaus's success with the grant is because we were able to set up a really in-depth tracking of how people are finding their website, how they're interacting on the website, and then also at what point are they donating. So my biggest tip here is that you should try to integrate your Google Analytics account with your donation platform. I mentioned Classy because it's just one that we work with a lot, but they have a really, really nice integration with this. That's pretty easy to set up. There's many other ones that also do this. Fundraise Up comes to mind. So you'll need to check about what your specific one is, but a lot of them have some kind of built-in integration that then allows us to track if it's working, and you can actually also target for donations, and that just takes it to another level. So please try to do that if you're able to. It will make a big difference. And then the last one that I already answered in the chat, but just in case you didn't see it, is that if you lost access to an account, or you're not sure if you had it, maybe like somebody signed up for the grant a long time ago, but you don't know what happened, we have a whole video about what to do in those cases. You can also contact us after the webinar and we can try to help you get it sorted out. So those are the questions we got ahead of time. I will stop sharing and we can try to take some of the other ones that have come in.
Yeah, we have a lot of people asking about how long does it take for the application process to kind of be finished.
Okay. Yeah. So the application process happens in two parts. We also have a YouTube video about that. You can tell I love our YouTube channel and you'll hear more of me there. So if you really want the like in depth, it's there. But the short answer is that usually the whole process should take less than a month. 2 weeks for the first part and then like another week for the second part, but less than a month typically.
We have one that says, did you mention something about different languages? Would you recommend running separate ads or campaigns while adjusting to the geographic targeting? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's what that's when everything related to the structure of the account comes here. How would I go about getting back to you? You will get an email from us tomorrow, and you will be able to reply to that email in case you want to use this free application that Sam mentioned. I think that's kind of it. Does
Yeah.
anyone have does Elevation offer services related to Google Analytics? Yes, we do.
Yes. I see a question about like the free consultation to troubleshoot setting up conversions. Unfortunately, no. What we're offering is to help you guys out with the application process. If you're interested in getting more help with that, then that's kind of covered under our services. You could still you can get in contact with us so we can kind of see what the scope of what you need help with is. And maybe we'll be able to set something up for you more specifically for that. But just to be clear, the offer is to help you with the application process so you can get the grant and then you can try it out and see. And of course, if you are looking for help with managing it, we do, of course, offer that. So if you would like to hire a company to help you manage the Google Ad Grant, we do offer that service. There's a lot of information. We'll make sure that you get it. And we would love to work with you. So definitely get in contact if that's an option for you.
And then someone's asking if they can participate in these programs since they are from West Africa. I don't remember specifically, but you can check on Google's website. You will have the specific eligibility criteria for each country. So you can check it there.
Okay. All right. I think we covered most of the big questions. If you had like a really big remaining question, you can always ask us. You can reply to our email as well and let us know. Of course, we can't like help you set up all the nitty-gritty of everything, but if you just have a question about like how does it work or if your organization is eligible or whatever that might be, just get in contact. And please stay in touch with Elevation. You can follow us on social media. Like I said, I will endlessly promote our YouTube channel. We have Facebook, Instagram, we'll be there. Also, we've got a lot of information on our website. And like I said, and already said, we will be following up with you via email. So you can rewatch this if you need to. You can take advantage of our offer. And we hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you for joining us today.
All right, everybody. See you. Bye-bye.